This story is of my own original creation. Please do not use my story, characters, or voice without my permission. Chica's Diary, Prologue. Chapter 1 of Prologue. A Gift. It felt like I was waking up from a nightmare, feeling the rush of thoughts and emotions, but not the rough beating of my heart. All sensations of warmth or the feeling of cold air on my skin left me. I felt nothing humanly personal. I lifted myself off the firm dirt, pushing my hand against the bark of a tree. I didn't process what had happened until I found myself lying breathless on the ground. I couldn't look away from the sight of my flesh, ripped off in scraps or large, deep scratches crossing my body and skins. My spear, hand in hand, was split in two. At such a young age, only half of mine, she would never live on with me. Morning passed me by. I only seized my duty to my weapon. In my heart, I gave her a blessing. I had lost. The fanged brush had claimed its bounty and left me dishonored. That damned beast! I could have slain it if I were quicker, or poised my spear more forward as it had leapt onto me. The gravity of my shame could not pull me to the earth. I only observed my body laying in the grass. I wanted to collect my thoughts and memories, but the history evaded me. Then, in a twisted answer, I saw her, and all memory of what I had done and who I was came back. The beating noise of nature being forced aside was rushing towards me. Her voice was strong and clear, yet wavered in the silence like a deer with antlers raised high, scanning the trees and brush in fear. The noise had reached the clearing, and they fell to silence. With soft steps, I watched as my sister dropped, kneeling in front of my body, and clutched me in her gripping arms. Her eyes cried waterfalls, and the wailing could rival a nymph's. In her arms she begged and pleaded for life, a wilted flower to regrow, attempting to defy Lady Nature. I too fell to my knees and flinged my arms around her, but my touch was not there. Tears refused to fall. My desperate mouth gave no words, and soon I too found myself defying Lady Nature's laws. Who was I to beg the goddess? I chose glory over honor, insisting to my sister to continue the hunt, and, when night had draped over the lands, I ran into the illusion of honor, not realizing glory had disguised itself. I had left her behind, and now she was reunited with me by her side. Honor lost, her brother lost. What honor did I have left to be rewarded a blessing from Lady Nature? I would repeat my empty wishes, continuing to beg not for me, but for my sister. I cried, "Blessed Lady Nature, please bring her comfort. I have no place in your garden, but my sister does. She is honorable, a loyal sibling. It is my fault. Plunge me far beyond the night sky to hang for eternity. Just bring her some comfort. Please, sister, don't cry." And my arms found warmth, my tears felt as if they were falling, and my words gained weight. For a moment I swore I felt her hand clenching mine. Chapter 2 of Prologue. A Seed. Dear Diary, you were given to an unworthy owner. It would be a great shame on me if I were to leave you wasted on a shelf. After all, Lady Nature's bounties are not to be squandered, and I'm not one to do so, but such a powerful object is wasted on me. When I first laid my hands on you, words couldn't describe the wonder I felt. Like a child who sees their first trick of magic, my eyes widened at what you were capable of. The Zofi tribe's lands were far north, but I've heard and seen their magic here, or at one of the other two other tribes. Holding it in my hands, your rough bark was scarred, searing marks of Mount Seld's fire across your brim, held firm while I sifted through your delicate pages. I sifted with great speed, but I reached no end despite your compacted size. I was told to wave my hand, which I did so, and a pen appeared in my palm. I was told to etch my name into your side, and so I was harmlessly tricked to bound your power to me. With another wave of my hand, you were gone, and, in my surprise, I waved again to bring you back with another. I'm not a writer, yet Lauren believes I should do so. He traveled far from his home in Bazafar and spent his earned keep just to then waste it on me. He claims it will help, but I don't understand. How are you supposed to make me feel better? You can't provide the thrill and honor of a hunt, or the duty and time spent cultivating. I argued with him again. He claimed I was insane, that I should mourn. How could he tell me that? After all we had been through, he was the last I wanted to hear that from. Why do they all think I need help? Why do they refuse to see him? Forgive me, Lady Nature, if I do not hold this bounty, so specially crafted from your earth, to its proper use. This bounty given to me is wasted. Chapter 3 of Prologue, A Stem. Dear Diary, I met someone today. I don't often write to you, but recently I've been feeling more compelled to do so. In fact, many things which I'd only do on rare occasions, I wish to do more. I'd rarely travel away from Kahika, and if I did, it was for the food or to be with Lauren. Nowadays, I feel an urge to leave my homeland and search beyond my tribe. We were at Lauren's home, picking up what I had forgotten to grab from last time. I didn't expect to return there so soon, and the smell of the chill air returned memories in my mind. I felt like an animal stuck in a trap, and all I could do was peer out of the window by the bedside, searching for something that I didn't know. Lauren stood beside me, and for once in a long time we lived in comfortable silence. He knew what I was thinking. Like him hunting out on the waves, Lauren always had a keen eye to see through the surface. We spoke a bit, and I hadn't intended to speak my unknown thoughts, but in that moment of vulnerable freedom, I told him my feelings of wanting to travel. Lauren, so swift to speak, told me of a place in the Anuba tribe, by a port, where they exclusively cooked seafood. Of course, he suggested it out of his personal knowledge of my love for any of Lady Nature's bounties from her field of sap. I balanced on my answer until he then pushed me by offering to sail me to the port where the cookhouse was. From my homeland to the far end shores of Anuba would have taken, at the shortest to travel there, a week, but with Lauren's sails we traveled speedily. One night had passed when we reached our destination. It was so sudden to come from Bazafar's grainy night shores and cool breezy winds to Anuba's fiery air and compacted sunset earth. The port was free of any ships, so we docked swiftly. As I tied our ship's dock line, Lauren said he'd stay behind to keep an eye on his ship. I agreed, not because the action was smart, but, I guiltily admit, I wanted to travel alone with my brother. If Lauren were to come along, I wouldn't be able to talk to Cup without Lauren and I getting into another argument. Lauren charted the path with his memories, and I followed them straight to the cookhouse. I had traveled twice to Anube before this, and each time I gazed over their buildings, homes made of the goddess's earth. They were squarely strong, and they were brightly colored as an azalea. When we reached the cookhouse, it lay nestled tightly between other houses. Entering in, there were plenty of empty seats to fill, and I carefully picked on a spot not so far back as to delay a server, but not too far forward to keep people's glances away. I felt comfortable to talk to Cup, and we were having a wonderful discussion on skinning when a server came up to give the menu. They quickly passed the paper onto the table and left, but not without me noticing their glaring eyes and frown. I was tired of it, being looked at like I was disgusting, and I felt like leaving, but then decided to bury my thoughts by looking at the menu. As Lauren had said, the menu was full of dishes from the depths. I looked through every option, but my heart captured one dish in particular the moment I had flipped through, a Bazafar albinism, one of the first dishes I had eaten when I first visited the tribe. Crispy outer skin, thin as a hair of grass, followed by a soft, stretchy layer of flesh, then contained in the center a salty burst of milky cream. My favorite dish, which I am embarrassed to say, is superior to any albinism dish in Cajica, squid balls. And that's when I heard something weird to me. It sounded like stones rolling against each other as a nymph from beneath the surface of a lake sang. I looked around the tables, then spotted the noise's origin. It was a man, hunched over in his seat as he seemingly cried. I couldn't tell, as he wore a full suit of melted earth. His shieldings shook gently as he clung his hands to his helmet. This person was alone, and I felt sympathy, as no one should be alone with their tears. I joined him at his table and cautiously opened conversation. To my surprise, he opened up quickly and began retelling his pains. If only I could have understood anything he was saying, as his helmet muffled his speech. Despite the problems, I nodded thoughtfully, and once I started to fear he'd ask me of the conversation, I turned our attention to the menu. I suggested he try the squid balls with me, to which he seemed on board. A beautiful waitress came up and she took our orders quickly. She acted strange, though, as she would frequently whisper to the man wearing melted earth and wink at us. I'm unsure what it was, but Cup seemed to know. He refuses to tell me, so I suppose we'll leave the memory here. While we waited, I talked to this man more and began to know him better. From what I could understand, his name was Lafayette. He's from the Inuit tribe, which I figured, as only someone from the melted earth's origin could wear it so proudly, night and day. He wears it as if it were skins. I could barely imagine the strength or resilience it would take to wear such a suit constantly. Even as I stood there in the cool cookhouse, away from the sun, and wore minimal skins, my body cried from the heat. I dread to imagine what it'd be like in his position. He lived alone with his mamma, which is mother, as he explained it to me. He was currently training to be a knight. I had only heard the word once before, and I eagerly wanted to question more, but then I remembered my brother. It was rude that I was now only conversing with Lafayette, and I wanted to bring my brother into it, but he always had to be ignored. No one would acknowledge him, and it pained me to frustration. I decided to introduce Cup to Lafayette, even if it would mean he would talk down on me, like most do. And to my surprise, he didn't look at me strangely. He was confused for sure, but he introduced himself to Cup, looking in the complete wrong direction, and then continued to talk. This time, It felt like he was talking to us, and that was refreshing. As Lafayette explained to me what nights were, a server quickly arrived with a full plate of squid balls. I was embarrassed, then ashamed, as I saw the huge pyramid of them, realizing I had ordered as if Cup could still eat. I pushed the plate of towering squid balls towards Lafayette, and I made sure he got the one at the top. Those ones were always the best. He was hesitant, but he lifted his helmet just enough so that he could take a bite. Immediately, it seemed like he was enjoying it. He was mumbling in excitement, hands waving, and he pointed to his throat with eagerness. I thought he was talking about the burst of flavor you get from biting into the fried skin and it hitting the back of your throat with a salty sensation. Then he took off his helmet, and I got to see his egg-shaped face and how his hair smushed up to a squarish box molded by his helmet. Then I realized his cheeks and throat were swollen. I yelled for a healer, and one came rushing out of the kitchen to cure his ailment, just as he fell face flat on the table. He was perfectly fine afterwards, and I apologized again and again for my lack of awareness. Turns out he was allergic. Despite everything, Lafayette still wanted to eat with me, and, after paying for one plate of beans, we ate happily. After the food, we went our separate ways. I hope to meet him again on my next visit, and maybe we could become companions. Oh, and the balls were okay. No one could compare with Lauren's squid balls. His cooking still stood gloriously above others. He made some when we arrived back to his home. Chapter 4 of Prologue. A Flower. Dear Diary, I'm sorry for not being able to write to you for the past few days. I'm eager to share that my generation's blooming hunt had just concluded. The celebrations lasted for 3 consecutive days. In swarms, the whole tribe gathered together in preparation of the celebrations, and we hunted for a whole day. It was a great honor being able to hunt beside my brothers and honorable hunters from across our homeland. That day, my trusted bow and dagger accompanied me. En masse, we took Lady Nature's bounties from her gifted lands. Elderly animals and pregnant soil were harvested as we continued through the day. On the second, we prepared the feast. The kitchens were brimming with bounties, the people scattering around the wide spaces to work in arms. The grand communal ovens were stuffed with meats, fires bubbled soups, bones were buried in mass in sacred ditches as tribute, and I was with the rest, carving skins, bones, and every manner of our goddess's bounties from flesh. In this brief calmness and isolation, as the group turned to one long droning noise like a rushing river, I felt comfortable talking with Cup about the pilgrimage. Before, the idea of leaving home on the waves and discovering yourself on them seemed so strange. In my youth, when they discussed the pilgrimage, I was sure I'd never think about it again, as I never intended to leave. Now I've grown a desire to take the journey. Much has happened, and I believe this would be a good step. I told Cup of my choice, expecting an argument, as he was always so alert whenever we would leave our tribe, but he simply nodded to my choice. I knew that scrunched look on his face. He wasn't thrilled, but his resolve to accompany, despite his own wishes, brought me confidence. I would need it for confronting my other siblings later on the last night of celebrations. On the third day, the blooming hunt truly turned into a celebration of coming of age I had waited for centuries. The feast was wide, spreading across the plains and homes, rows of people like farmland, all passing plates of food and sharing stories in the morning's grace. As the day went on and night graced us, the celebrations continued to erupt like Mount Seld, magical bursts of flaming spirit all across our people. Grand pyres were lit, people sung stories and danced, and homes were filled with the sweet sounds of desire. The excitement took to me, and I indulged in it all. From memory, I could recall moments of dancing alongside my brothers, drinking to contentment, and Cup jumping from within the pyre to scare me. The celebrations felt short, but everlasting. It reached the end of the blooming hunt, and it was then I gathered my siblings. Speaking of my decision, the pilgrimage was a great feat to take, and perhaps I'd never see my siblings again, which I feared so deathly. Once my words were done, there was no sadness or joy between us all. Freddie, the eldest, approached me and firmly planted a Zophim map in my palms. It would chart the waters and lands, no matter how foreign they may be. It was a symbol of acceptance and safe wishes. Rivers spanned across my cheeks and his, and I took hold of him. His bouldering belly obstructed us, but it mattered little. In darkness, I felt the piling warmth of them all around me, and I could have sworn that I felt the warmth of Cup too in that coil. After such a long day, I'm so ready to rest. Before I go, I'm sorry, Diary. I wasn't being an honorable hunter when I doubted the value of you. You kept by my side like a weapon, and I will honor you as such. Chapter 5 of Prologue. Endings to Beginnings. Dear Diary, I'm writing to you as Lafayette grabs the oars of our ship. Today, we are sailing off on our pilgrimage. We traveled yesterday to Anube to pick up Lafayette for the journey ahead. I could think of no better companion to bring along with me for this journey. He is a great fighter, loyal like a hunter, and he's entertaining company. We've grown so much closer as friends, it's hard to believe it has only been months. Cup says it's been a few years, but I don't think he's right. It definitely didn't feel that way. When we got to his place, we could hear muffled arguing and sobbing through the door. It reminded me of those novellas Lafayette's mother introduced to me. I went to knock on the door just as Lafayette opened it, so I ended up knocking on his helmet. I may have cursed following my apology, which, I then realized, was a mistake, as his mother was right behind him. Cup shot off like an arrow, gliding across the air, while Lafayette and I sprinted soon after. Even with a head start, Cup fell behind, unable to control his speed. He was smacked through with a loose sandal, and it continued, dinking the back of Lafayette's head. Once we were safely out of range, I thanked Lafayette for blocking the shot. Now we're here on the shores of Bazafar, waiting to sail out. The ship was gifted to us by Lauren. He heard of my decision from the web of friends, and he came by to make sure we had a vessel to sail on. It's a beautiful ship, sturdy at its foundation, and its mast with open sails stand unafraid. Seeing it, the ship brought a strange feeling. This island, it's all I've known, and it'll forever be my home. Yet something compels me to go. Cup just left to find Lafayette. I better go join him. Chica's Diary, Prologue, the end. Thank you so much for listening. This story is actually my retelling of a D&D campaign I've been in with some friends. I took the notes from the campaign and turned them into the following series of diary entries, though not all of the prologue was played in our session. Any mentions of Lafayette were played out in the sessions, as my dear friend David was there at session 0 to play these out. The rest is my background to Chica and Cup. Again, thank you for listening. And end of me talking. As Lauren had said, the menu was full of dishes from the depths. I looked through every option, but my heart captured one dish in particular the moment I flipped through. A Bazafar al... al... Bye, 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 bye.